But I think what happened yesterday or so, is the worst. The disruption of the vetting process because of Agbaja. And then sometimes the nominees are asked to speak their local languages. You say you speak Ga, speak some Ga. And then the nominee will also rattle a few words in Ga and so on. What is that? What is that? It is so embarrassing. And Kwame, my prediction, if the current trend continues, if the minority is not able to show that it is focused on the essential things, the things that the Ghanaian people consider essential.
Whenever I say my PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Kwesi Pratt has finally reacted to Afenyo Markin's behavior during the vetting of the Deputy Attorney General, which I want you to join me listening to what he said into detail, and also featuring the change of Kotoka International Airport. Without much ado, I would like you to join me listening to what he said into detail. This station still remains PENDREAM TV, the only channel that brings you the best and latest updates in politics. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like, and also share to other members to watch as well. You can equally leave a comment at the comment section or send us a voice note on our WhatsApp number, which is 0277128777. Thank you. Without much time wasting, I would like you to join me listening to what he said into detail. We'll be right back.
Well, I met Dr. Libo, who delivered the lecture for the first time in Shanghai, in China. And at the time I met him, he was reading Nkrumah's book, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. And so his entry into the study of the life and deeds of Nkrumah was actually through that book, exposed him. Now, Dr. Libo is also the chief executive officer of the Guanchan Syndicate. The Guanchan Syndicate is a media outlet, it's a media establishment which specializes in telling the true story of the so-called Global South as against the story told by the Western media. So he's intensely interested in telling the true story of Africa, the true story of China, and the true story of what Chairman Mao used to refer to as the Third World. In addition to that, he's also a fellow of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. And the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research is really a progressive research center, which also covered, to a very large extent, the so-called Global South. Then he's also a very key academic, involved in research at the Fudan University, which is one of the biggest universities in China, one of the most prestigious universities in China. And if you look at the theme for the celebration, for the observance of Ghana's Day of Shame this year, it was about the effort of China and Africa to build a new world, a better world. And he took a look at that effort through the perspectives of Mao and Nkrumah. And he's eminently qualified, to discuss Mao, having been a student of Chinese history himself. Now, the statement he makes about Ghana and the overthrow of Nkrumah, there's absolutely no doubt at all about it. And I like to look at very, very specific problems that we face today, and how those problems would not have existed if Nkrumah had not been overthrown on February 24, 1966. And first, I like to look at power, the power crisis that we have, the doomsaw, problem. First, Nkrumah's 7-year development program was about building a new Ghana which would not have power problems and which would utilize all the resources we had in order to provide power for industrialization, for improving the social life of our people, and so on. So Nkrumah's 7-year development program envisaged a Ghana which was going to rely on nuclear generation of power. It was key. Nuclear generation of power was key. So by 24 February 1966, Ghana has signed an agreement with the Soviet Union for the generation of power using nuclear. In addition to that, Ghana had also reached an agreement with Soviet engineers for the construction of the Bui Dam. And indeed, on February 24, 1966, when the coup took place, the engineers were already on site for the construction of the Bui Dam. Then there was the project which was described as the mini hydro projects. And the mini hydro projects was going to focus attention on damming all the rivers, of Ghana to generate power and also for purposes of irrigation, the production of food and so on. Now, if the coup had not happened and these projects had been implemented, as envisioned in the 7-year development plan of Nkrumah, how could we be having this doomso problem? So Dr. Libo is right. Now, if you come to agriculture, all the studies which have been done indicate that this country suffers 30% post-harvest losses, especially in grain production. So about 30% of what we produce just gets destroyed by weevils and so on. Post-harvest losses, 30%. Now this could easily be cured using radiation, you understand? Now before 24 February 1966, Nkrumah had brought in the equipment which would have enabled the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission to use radiation to minimize post-harvest losses or to eradicate post-harvest losses. So just imagine that the coup did not take place. 30% of the food that we lose through weevil infestation and so on could have been saved for the people of Ghana. And perhaps today, we would not be buying kenke at 5 cedis a ball, you understand? So that's also quite very clear. The other program that the Nkrumah government had was simply described as import substitution. So the project was aimed at ensuring that our dependence on imports was reduced substantially. And if indeed we reduce our dependence on imports substantially, our city would not be suffering the way it is suffering today. So to this end, the Nkrumah government established more than 600 state enterprises for the production of virtually everything. Producing our own matches, we're producing our own machetes, we're producing glass, we're producing our own refrigerators and deep freezers and so on. We're producing our own wireless as in radio. We're producing our own television sets. We're producing, what weren't we producing in Ghana at the time? Over 600 state enterprises. Now, all of this, or most of them, were privatized after the coup. The effect of the privatization is that today, Ghana has again become an import-dependent country. We import everything: tomatoes, onions, cocoyam, plantain. What don't we import anymore? We import our refrigerators, we import our radio sets, we import everything again. You understand? And that's having a tremendous impact on the value of our currency. And interestingly, Kwame, between 1982 and now, the Ghanaian cedi has been devalued to the tune of about 26,000%. I mean, you can't wrap your head around it. 26,000% devaluation. To the extent that when we actually executed Colonel, what was his name? The naval commander, what was his name? Amedome. Amedome. When Amedome was executed for taking a loan of 50,000 to build a house, he didn't steal the money. He took a loan from a bank to build a house. The argument was that the loan was not properly secured. So we executed him, 50,000 then. That 50,000 in today's currency, I think is 50 pesos. So we executed Rear Admiral Medome for taking a loan of 50 pesos. I mean, incredible. I mean, there's the extent of devaluation, of the national currency and so on. Now, one other huge impact that the coup has made on us is just simply the fact that all of our national assets have been taken over by multinational corporations from the metropolitan capitals. You understand? And only recently, Dr. Sam Jonah, who was chief executive of Anglo Gold Ashanti, was lamenting, he was crying, and he was making the point that, look, if you take the gold sector, Ghanaian interest in gold mining today is less than 1%. This is the result of the 1966 coup and the reckless policies which were implemented after the 1966 coup. So, to a very large extent, I mean, Dr. Libo is right. Then also, even if you come to international politics, at the time of the coup, the Ghanaian president was on his way to go and broker peace between the United States of America and Vietnam. Ghana's president was punching way above the weight of the country at that level. You understand? His closest friends were Mao himself, Chu Enlai, who was the premier of China, and so on. Now, Ghana became a very, very important founding member of the non-aligned movement, which brought together countries like Cuba, Romania, and so on. In fact, the founding fathers of the non-aligned movement were Kwame Nkrumah, Suharto, Fidel Castro, pardon? Ceausescu of Romania, and so on. They founded the non-aligned. You understand? If you come to the AU, which used to be the Organization of African Unity, that was the brainchild of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That is why today, if you go to the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, Nkrumah's giant statue is in front of the building. I don't know of any African country that I've visited who doesn't have a monument, in recognition of the achievements of Nkrumah. I think his biggest statue can be found in Mali. You understand? His biggest statue. And I went to Kenya. One of the most important streets in Kenya is named after Nkrumah. I went to Havana. And there's a statue in memory of Nkrumah and so on. This is the stature of the man we are talking about. This is the stature of the man who was overthrown on February 24, 1966. But Kwame, you know something? I mean, over the last 3 days, I've been very disturbed because I'm reading of some 2 organizations or 3 organizations which allegedly have gone to the Supreme Court to get the Supreme Court, to decide that the Accra International Airport should no longer be called Kotoka International Airport. And then there are others who are insisting that the airport should be renamed Kwame Nkrumah International Airport. I think, look, this action is completely misplaced. Listen, the naming of the Kotoka International Airport was not a judicial action. It was a political action. It was government who decided to name that airport Kotoka International Airport. To reduce that to a matter which can receive judicial review is to totally misunderstand that whole thing. Now listen, these Supreme Court judges, are they clothed with the authority, the information, and the understanding to make decisions about what name we should give to our international airport? But if you go to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court decides that, look, it's okay to keep the name Kotoka International Airport and so on, you've disabled political action, legitimate political action, to correct that wrong. You understand? So this effort, I don't think it was properly thought through. It's going to disable, the political effort. And I am disgusted completely by that action. Now, happily, yesterday the Convention People's Party issued a statement distancing itself from that move and saying that it will not be party to that reckless move. And clearly that's a reckless move. Because once you take the matter to the Supreme Court, now, even if the current administration headed by President John Mahama wanted to change, they cannot. You have tied their hands. And they are bound to go by the Supreme Court decision. Why this reckless move? Why this reckless move? I mean, it's so reckless, it's unbelievable. You understand? Now, I don't care whether the airport is named after Nkrumah or not. That is not my problem. My problem is that we cannot name that airport after Emmanuel Kwesi Kotoka, after all that we know today. Because today, we have seen the declassified documents of the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America, which clearly indicate that he was an agent of a foreign intelligence agency, and that coup was organized by the United States of America through its Central Intelligence Agency with the collaboration of other Western intelligence agencies. So to that extent, that coup represented an attack on our national sovereignty and independence. Those who participated in that coup were traitors to the national cause, and we cannot be honoring traitors and so on. I've read the account of Jack Mahoney in his book JFK Ordeal in Africa. Very clear. I've read John Stockwell, who was a senior operative of the CIA. And I've read Philip Agee and all the documents we have, including declassified documents of MI5, point to the fact that Kotoka and others were traitors, and we cannot be honoring traitors. Indeed, if you look at the British offender, the documents, the authentic documents available in the British archives and so on, it is clear that the British participated in organizing the coup of 1966 not out of any love for the African people, for the Ghanaian people. Indeed, the British High Commissioner then, September 1961, actually wrote a cable to his government, urging his government to participate in the effort to overthrow the Nkrumah government because Nkrumah was making the African too politically conscious, and that if Nkrumah was not stopped, British interest in Africa would suffer. So if Kotoka and others were part of this grand scheme, that A.W. Snelling described, why do we honor them? So I am firmly in support of the call to remove Kotoka's name from the airport. Who the airport will be named after is not my interest, it's not my concern. But Kotoka's name ought to be removed from the airport. Finished.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Well, maybe the intended purpose for the action is to achieve what you are talking about.
You cannot achieve.
So that, when the Supreme Court passes a judgment, nobody can change the name again. Maybe that's the...
No. It can, if that is the intention, it can backfire. That is not even the forum.
Agreed.
Should go to.
Yeah, but the question is, why did they start to begin with?
If you look at the current Supreme Court, look at the current Supreme Court. What in hell will convince anybody who knows our history and so on that the Supreme Court will give this ruling? Yeah. That's a reckless act. Complete reckless act. People are in a hurry. They want to jump over everybody so that they will take credit for things that happen. That's not how you treat national politics, things of national importance and so on. It's not about getting credit for yourself and so on. That's not the issue. There's a government in place. If that government in place is properly minded, understands our history and so on, that government should take that action. But people don't want that government to get the credit. You understand? So they jump ahead of everybody and they go to the Supreme Court to go and do what in the Supreme Court? I'm so embarrassed, you know. I mean, to think that the vetting of ministerial nominees was aborted because the minority in Parliament wanted the nominee to dance Agbaja. and it was not allowed. I mean, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. What is this? This is so very embarrassing. I mean, I've seen vetting before. I mean, recently I was watching, I had problems with some of the questions which were being asked, you know, from the minority side. There was one instance where a nominee was asked to sing his favorite high life song. And I was wondering, what is happening here? Then on the majority side, there's this MP. As soon as the nominee takes the seat, the MP starts, oh, you are more than qualified for the job. You don't have any problem. You will excel. Anyway, bye-bye. And so on. What is the quality of vetting? But I think what happened yesterday or so, you know, is the worst. The disruption of the vetting process because of Agbaja. You know. And then sometimes the nominees are asked to speak their local languages. You know, oh, you say you speak Ga. Speak some Ga. You know, and then the nominee will also rattle a few words in Ga and so on. What is that? What is that? It is so embarrassing. And Kwame, my prediction, if the current trend continues, if the minority is not able to show that it is focused on the essential things, the things that the Ghanaian people consider essential, the bread and butter issues, the kinky and fish issues, the improvement in our road network, you know, the expansion of access to social services like health and education. This micro-minority, they will be lucky to have a micro-minority in the next elections. What they will get will be far worse than the micro-minority.
But let's look at what Mr. Gade has said. Publicly, you are conducting the vetting process in accordance with the rules of Parliament. The rules of Parliament says that certain words cannot be used.
Yeah.
That's a way to challenge your chairman. And your chairman takes exception, overrules your question. You don't invoke the processes of Parliament. You exhibit arrogance and impunity. You talked about the 1996 Parliament. Can you look at the constitution of that Parliament? The caliber of people.
Yeah, right now we've reduced that.
Yes. Quality. You're looking at quality. Oh. Well, I talked about LPP losing and appointed figures at Akufo-Addo. They also appointed figures at the party for changing a seasoned leader and bringing a comedian like Afenyo. It's one of the reasons that I've read. And I have no doubt that there is some substance in that reason. And lastly, I'm telling you that it is only strong people who recognize their failing and apologize for that failing. Weak people refuse to do that because they think it's a diminution in status. They are weak when they fail to do
But
that.
Honorable, what the NPP is doing, it's like the proverbial thing about pointing fingers. They're pointing one finger at President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and all the 4 other fingers are pointing at themselves.
Yeah.
If it's true, if what they are claiming is true, that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was responsible for their loss because of the way he conducted himself in government and the way he handled the party and so on. The reverse question is, how did he succeed? How did the party allow him to do all the things that he did for 8 years? The party was there, silent. They couldn't check him. They couldn't complain. Now he's left office. You are pointing your fingers at him.
It's a convenient bill.
What is it? The party allowed it. I spoke to a leading member of the party some time ago, and I was shocked. This is about 5 years ago. And he was telling me that, look, they are sitting there in the party headquarters pretending to be running the party. And that for everything the party does, they needed to submit a budget to the presidency for approval. The party did not have any resource of its own. So one presidency says no, no, finish. And they tolerated this for 8 years. They're now complaining to who? To me?
Anyway.
All right. Today is the first Sunnah of the second coming of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Everybody's excited. I'm very excited about today. So we will cross over to Parliament House very soon, and then we'll bring you a live feed of that. Now, the Vice President has also been in the news, and she's raised some very important, made some very important point. And she's saying that mining must not be destructive. I think this point ought to be interrogated on the show. And I want to start with Mr. Philip London. By the way, I'm very confident that this administration will do very well, because the minister has started well, engaging with stakeholders, going to the field, speaking to people. I think that's how ministers ought to work, not sit in the comfort of your office and giving instructions and directives, or rather pretending to be flying over. Anyway, let me catch you, Mr. London.
Let me continue from where you were. A lot of ministers.
Mining currently is not sustainable. Because we are obviously losing far more than we are gaining from mining. If you take the cocoa sector, cocoa production has gone down by more than 50%, recently. And it simply doesn't make sense. I mean, you go to the mining areas and the medical practitioners are reporting that children are being born without limbs. Children are being born with huge, defects and so on. So mining as it's currently being carried out doesn't make any sense at all. And perhaps it may even be useful to ban mining completely at such time that we can get it right. Because the cost is way above the benefit, and it's not worth it. I agree with the Vice President, Her Excellency Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, that it's possible to have sustainable mining, But if you can't have sustainable mining, it simply doesn't make sense at all. I mean, sometimes we are tempted to focus attention on small-scale mining and illegal mining. Even the multinational corporations give us headaches, many headaches, many headaches. If you read the reports of Wakam and so on, it's clear. Giant companies have given us a lot of trouble in the past, and some of them still continue to give us a lot of trouble. So it's time to review mining operations and to make a determination as to whether it is beneficial for the Ghanaian people and the Ghanaian economy.
Well, thank you very much. We are about closing the show, but I want to also congratulate Honorable Haruna Idrisu. He's also started something which is a novelty, the National Education Forum. I think they've traversed the country. They are ending it at UPSA. So congratulations to you. This is what we need. I mean, when people feel that they are part of governance, it gives them a sense of ownership. And I think that for now, this administration has started well. Can really wish them well. Sona is coming up shortly. David Atto will host some technocrats here on Pan-African television. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned in, keep watching.
Thank you for your time on the channel. PENDREAM TV really appreciates your time. And once again says God bless you for the wonderful work you are doing. This is the best place to locate any factual political talk or show. And for you not to miss out, please, I'll urge you to subscribe to the channel. Turn the notification bell on so that you'll be notified duly as a new member and a registered customer of the channel as well. Thank you.
I'm not PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.